when I would get into a bike, and it got kind of how I got into being a technician as far as a paycheck. Um, I've got a computer aided graphics associate's degree. I was in a sign shop. I was doing graphics for a sign shop, and my brother-in-law, and it just wasn't working out. And all my friends, because not only did I work on my bikes, I worked on all my friends' bikes,
Uh-huh.
and I had done that since back in '86 when I got an FZR 600 from a kid. Started riding that, and I was working on it out in the parking lot of the barracks, and people would ride up and they say, "You work on bikes?" It's like, "Well, yeah." So every time somebody would bring me their bike, I'd get a book and try to figure out what was wrong and so on and so forth. So I became the my friend. He is a he's not a technician, but he works on his own stuff all the time. He does good work. We never have any problems. I had my own tire changer. I had my own paint
Wow. So
booth.
you started building your stuff up because of that.
Well, I just wanted, when I wanted to work on my stuff, I wanted to be able to work on it. I
Oh,
don't,
okay.
you know, I mean, my hat's off to the do-it-yourselfers, but you trying to change a tire on your bike, like on an Indian, because it has the enclosed wheel wells,
Mm-hmm.
one of two things. You either have to lay the bike down and pull it
Ugh.
out, or you're going to have to hoist it up high enough to clear that fender. Because at our shop, that's where, when we work on bikes, we have lifts that have drop out. So while the bike is sitting there nice and level, it actually drops out from below and we can take the tire straight down. So we don't have to take anything apart.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen people hang their bikes on the ceiling with ratchet straps.
Exactly.
It works, but
It works, but now you've got two ratchet straps and balancing on a front tire that
mm,
sways, and every time you grab it and try, it's a recipe for disaster at some points.
yeah.
There are aftermarket companies that have lifts out there that will get you by. Like I said, with the problem with Indian and those enclosed wheel wells is it's tough to get them out without doing a lot of extra work.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't want to mess with having to get the tire on the rim, take it all off, and then rebalance all that. That's just too much. I'd rather pay the money for that.
Yeah,
Is there something and I don't want obviously whatever you say, it's like, well, I'm then taking business away. You know, like I tell people
right.
to go do an MSF class or here check out Moto Jitsu or somebody and get their book. That's like taken away from me. But what is it? What would you recommend somebody like first if they want to get into motorcycle maintenance and on their own bike, so they don't screw anybody else's up? But like, what should they start? I mean, oil changes seems pretty easy to do.
They seem easy. Bottom line, get a manual. I mean, the manual will last the life of the bike.
The service manual
Bottom,
or the
yes,
okay.
the service manual. It has torque specs. A lot of people don't know that there are torque specs on the drain plugs. They just think, well, if tight's good, tighter is better. Until you go to take it off and you have destroyed the threads, and now you have to bring it to me, and I have to drill it out and reinsert new threads
Oh
and
wow.
charge you a lot of money when you could have bought a torque wrench, set it to 15 foot-pounds, and wait for the click or the beep.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is tools. If you're going to work on bikes, get good tools. Um, if you have tools that you use once every 3 years, fine. Get an inexpensive set. I get all my tools from Snap-on and Matco due to the fact that I literally wear them out because I use them so often. My
Oh
six
yeah.
millimeter, I have warrantied out 2 times because it starts to wear down.
Wow, I've
Um,
never had to deal with that. That's crazy.
yeah. Um, cheap to cheap tools aren't good and good tools aren't cheap. So that's
There's
another thing to
another
keep
one.
in
There's
mind.
another one.
Yep.
I love it. Same thing with
Um,
helmets. Same thing with helmets
yep.
sometimes. Jeez.
When we sell bikes, you get a toolkit. Um, on your FTR, you get
Mm.
one Allen wrench that's down by the battery box.
Yep.
That
Yep.
will get you out of trouble. That's not for rebuilding the motor.
Yeah.
Um, that if you do it a lot, you want good tools that are going to last. Um, I have my own Harbor Freight tools that I use for once in a great while
Yeah.
because I only need them once every 6 months or something. And I know what the limitations are of them. I know that if I put it on an air impact, it's going to be a Matco or a Snap-on because I know that it'll crack if it's not.
Mm.
Um, there's certain items on our bikes that are torqued to 250 foot-pounds.
Jeez.
People don't realize that. And it's not the torquing to, it's the breaking loose. You have heat fatigue. Sometimes they have green Loctite, which is like super glue for bolts. You got to heat it up to over 288 degrees before the Loctite will even release.
Wow.
These are things that I know because I have manuals and training that the guy that's trying to change out his driven pulley on his full-size 111 Indian
Uh-huh.
doesn't know, and he's standing there with a pipe trying to break it loose, and he ends up either hurting himself because it slips off.
Yeah.
It's things like this that, you know, our training and our labor rates are set for a reason.
Yeah, because I mean, they'll try that with like a cheater bar, hurt themselves,
Exactly.
maybe strip something, and then they bring them to you. And then, but if like they just brought it to you the first time, you already knew what to do. You heat it up, you do all that stuff, and you just kind of
Yep.
it's natural for you.
And all my
It
sockets fit. I'm not taking a metric bike and I've got a big standard socket that almost fits. It's a little loose, but it'll still work. Because you round that bolt off or that nut off, now we're in trouble.
Yeah, so you have the exact fit to the millimeter, all that stuff.
And like I
Perfect.
said, when these tools start to wear and I start getting a little bit of movement on them, they go right back on the tool truck and I get a brand new one.
That honestly, like that to me says that you take care of your stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, we're not here to like talk bad about anybody, but I'm pretty sure there's some mechanics out there that it's like I can get with the tire. It's like I can get another, month or two out of this tool or something, and then now you have a problem, and something happens, and then the guy gets their bike back, and it's just like what the heck. So that's cool. I'm glad that you're doing that. What's like?
Personally,
Oh, go ahead.
personally for me, it's a ethics thing. If I do shortcuts on your bike, I'm not the one that's going to be riding it for the next 6 months to a year. It's
Mm,
your life in my hands after I'm done with it. That's why we always do test rides after to check, make sure everything's functioning on what we work on. And a lot of times we will check other components that we didn't even work on. One of my responsibilities as being the lead tech is spotting things on bikes that most people, even the owners, overlook.
mm-hmm.
I had a customer come in and he was getting a rear tire and we ended up putting front pads on. He didn't know his pads were down to 10%.
Oh yeah.
And the problem is if you're ready to change your tire and your pads are 10, 15%, chances are you're going to wear out those pads before you change the tire. So if you're doing the tire and the pads are already off, you might as well do the pads. Now you have a fresh tire and new fresh pads to go with it.
Yeah,
You're
that's
not you're
huge.
not you're not double backing to have pads done because you're not going to keep looking at the pads. You're going to keep looking at the tires.
What is like something do people like overlook? Like you're saying that they bring in their tire or whatever and they want to get that done, but then you're like, oh man, this, you should probably change or redo.
Yes.
Like what is some of the most common stuff that you typically see?
Most common things I see out of spec or out of adjustment, if it is, we're lucky we have fly-by-wire throttle
Okay.
cables.
Okay.
Um,
Oh wow.
Real, I'll call them motorheads, people that have worked on older models a lot, where you have two throttle cables, one pull, one to release. If you break one, you can figure out how to switch it so that you at least can give yourself gas
Mm-hmm.
and let the spring return the throttle. Clutch, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, if you break a clutch cable, you're done. You're
Yeah.
sitting on the side of the road. I don't know of anybody that can get a bike rolling, pop it into gear, and then come to a stop or float the clutch to do gear shifts well enough. They're out there, don't get me wrong. Um, Misadjusted clutches. When they're slack in the clutch cable, it will rub. And as it rubs, it starts cutting those strands. I'll have to send you a picture. I was doing an oil change on my Scout. I was lubing the clutch cable and the pivot point, and I see two broken wires hanging off the clutch cable. And I was like, oh, I need a new clutch cable.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, well, you sure? I was like, yeah. Took 1 week to get the clutch cable in, actually 5 days. When I went to take the clutch cable off, I had 3 strands holding it in place.
Oh my gosh. So you knew,
That's
right?
how
You
quick,
knew. Yeah.
yes, that's how quick they can
Wow.
go bad.
This is just so cool because like I'm thinking like in terms of you come from your point of view is motorcycle maintenance, but it'll also bring in the safety part. Like that's something
Very
I'm
much.
missing personally. Like I focus on the skills, the mental skills, the gear, the human body.
Hmm.
And I think I personally neglect a little bit of the actual bike being a big thing. So, dude, I'm learning a lot. Like,
I want
obviously,
return customers. That's what I want. I
yeah,
want you to come back every time. You know, like I said, I did front brakes on a guy that was getting a rear tire. Um, and he goes around, he says, go to Indian, go see Scott. They always overlook the whole bike, and we do. And it's a checklist that we have that Phil and I have sat down and gone over, and we add to it, believe it or not, on a regular basis when we start finding things that seem like they're being overlooked that should be checked. Not only to remind me that's been doing it as a paycheck for 6 years,
hmm
but uh, just to reiterate, you know, check the tires, check the clutch, check the belt, check the fork seals. Um, a lot of times people will come in and they want this, and we find other things that are wrong. They had no idea,
yeah.
or they didn't know it was out of spec.
I think as a consumer or somebody that brings in their bike, when I hear that, the first thing to my mind is like, oh, it costs more money. But then I personally know from safety standpoint, it's like, well, it's needed. It definitely is
Hmm.
needed, and I should be spending this money to take care of this. Um, but I like the fact that you come from that safety standpoint. It's like, hey, I'm not here to tell you, hey, you need this because I want to work on your bike, get more hours or whatever it
No,
is.
not
Let's
at
see,
all.
I don't even know that. But you come from it like, hey, I have 3 cables or 3 strands on my clutch cable, and I know that if it's gonna break, I'm done. I couldn't even imagine like it snapping and then you're trying to slow down and stop. I mean, that thing's just gonna shut down on you and stall, and you're gonna have problems, dump the bike, crash, whatever it is.
If you ever want to try it on the range, the easiest way to do it,
Uh huh.
be riding along in a gear, kill the motor, but don't turn it back on and try to stop.